Welcome to Aware. We are dedicated to communicating information that inspires your positive growth and change. Are you interested in a peaceful planet? Are you interested in optimal health? Are you living with purpose? Are you enjoying your life? We realize each person can make a difference, and our mission is to empower your awareness. The choices that you make in every moment shape your life, and we encourage you to realize that you have your own answers and to always listen to your own truth. We invite you to stay aware.
Hello and welcome to The Aware Show. I am Lisa Garr, and I am so clear about how happy I am to be here with you right now. Because The Aware Show brings for me this incredible oasis, a moment to receive information that inspires my positive growth and change. And if it does that for me, my prayer is that it does it for you as well. Today we're talking about a topic that is near and dear to my heart. It's almost a huge issue with our community, our younger community, our adult community. It has to do with putting our happiness on external circumstances. So when we become wealthy, we'll be happy, or when we are in the right relationship, we're happy, or when we have the right physical body, we're happy. And if you've ever done this, and a lot of social media puts us into this place where we put our external happiness onto a photo or this image that we're thriving. And it is a very much of a roller coaster to live that way. You live by your emotions, and your happiness is dictated outside of yourself, and many things that you can't control. Especially we've seen this lately with the pandemic. So I invite you into a new conversation today. I invite you into a conversation that has to do with internal happiness, with internal wealth, and that doesn't have to mean money, with internal abundance. And joining me for this conversation is Derek Rydall, who is a brother from another mother. He and I always get into these incredibly deep dive conversations because his body of work is about emergence. It's about this deep dive for the book he wrote is called Emergence, 7 Steps for Radical Life Change. And his whole principle around the law of emergence is to do this exact deep dive into these patterns in our life that we can look to externally to unfold our level of abundance and happiness. Welcome, 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 Derek.
So good to be here, Lisa. Always. It's an honor and a pleasure. And what an important time for us to be having this conversation.
So much, so much. We are going through, we're coming out of this, quote, pandemic, and many people are looking at this place of, what do I do now? What existed before is not there any longer. We're different. Our planet's different. The narrative, everything has changed. So if we try to fit into that same mold, it's going to be like putting a round peg into a square hole. So we've got to try to figure out how to adapt constantly to this level of change. And yes, I'd like to ask you, just to start off with, what do you do when you are having to pivot over and over and over again? It's not just one pivot anymore.
It's true. We have to become ballerinas.
Constantly.
Great dancers at doing pirouettes. And I want to say, we're coming out of one phase of the pandemic, and it's really important that we understand that we're not going to be able to go back, and we don't want to go back. And that even more than going forward, we need to learn how to go deeper, how to go inward. And the way out is in. And so the way forward is inward. And so when it comes to pivoting, there is a way of living life where you are at the whim of external conditions, as you talked about, believing your good is out there somewhere, believing your joy, peace, happiness, well-being, worthiness is based on some external condition, person, place, thing, achievement, acquirement, all that. And that's how most people live. And when you believe that, then you are constantly manipulating or dancing or bobbing or weaving or pivoting because you think, oh, this just changed. Now I don't have something that I need. Now I got to pivot. Or that person is changing, or it's a new president, or it's a new whatever. And now, and on and on and on. Or I'm in a relationship. Now I got to be this way. I'm out of a relationship. Now I got to be this way. I've got a job. I don't have a job. The economy's good. The economy's bad. And so you're always adjusting who you are or what you're doing based on that. So the way out of that whole thing is finding the locus of your control and your power, finding your agency, finding your compass, finding your North Star inside of you. And what I like to say is no longer leaning on resources, but on the source. And when you learn to lean on and live in and live from this source within you that we're going to talk about, not only do you start to realize that the joy, the peace, the happiness, the freedom, the worthiness, the power never ever did come from out there, but it's all right here. And you get to have as much of it as you're willing to tap into and express. But also, as that unfolds, so does your rent get paid. So does the new relationship show up. So does, yes, even the body heal, and even your conditions change, and the new job and the new opportunities. And it can seem miraculous if you don't understand the principle. But the core idea here is that no matter what conditions we are facing or that we've been through, when we learn how to tap into that source and learn how to circulate it, how to generate our own life, we're the generators of it. Not the government, not the economy, not your partner, not your kids, not your parents. You are. When we learn how to do that, we can manifest the life that we truly desire and ultimately that we deserve, no matter what.
I've been on both sides of this. I've been in that negative spiral where I learned you create more negative spiral. It is,
Right.
it is the law of attraction in action. I mean, I would spin and just more of spinning would happen.
Yes.
And then I have the experiences where I'm looking at the blessings and looking at the blessings, and they just keep coming. And
Yeah.
the more blessings keep happening.
Well, there's a line in the Bible, real quick, just it's the line where Jesus says, to he who has, it's about the three servants and the master gives them all the talents, which is gold. But at the end of it, they each do different things with it. And the moral of it is, to he who has, more will be given and it will be multiplied. But to he who has not, even what he has will be taken away and he will be cast into darkness. And the principle is not about physically having, it's speaking about a consciousness of having, a consciousness of I am, I have, I can, I'm grateful, as you're saying. That is a success pattern or an upward spiral. Whereas I don't have, it's not working, I can't do it, and there's a problem, is the focus that creates the downward spiral.
Yes, there's that bridge, though, between those two states that's what I want to ask you about, is that first step that takes you from the negative thinking towards the more of the attracting what you want. You can't just go from one state to the other.
Right. Well, so first of all, I want to make an important distinction for me, and it's a very important distinction in my experience, and I've been doing this work for 25 years, is I want us to actually stop thinking about attraction. And I know we love law of attraction, and law of attraction is in operation, but it's also a bit of a linguistic convenience because it's not really attraction that's happening. In the same way that we say the sun is rising and the sun is setting, but it's not actually doing that. The planet is revolving and it creates the illusion of a rising and a setting sun. And it's also more romantic to say, hey, let's go watch the sunset than, hey, let's go watch the planet revolve. So it's just better linguistics. But you're not really attracting things that really there's an emergence. The acorn already has the oak tree. It doesn't go out and attract an oak tree. It doesn't go out and earn itself into an oakhood. It doesn't achieve oakhood. It doesn't become worthy of an oak. It doesn't build the oak. It is the oak in the quantum field. And when it surrenders to its true nature, which it does naturally, and the conditions become congruent, oak emerges. And that's what I want us to think about. We're not trying to attract anything, because by definition, if you do, it's just a higher version of believing your good is out there somewhere and you're going to pull it to you. And it's not what's actually occurring.
Okay.
It emerges in your field and it looks like things are coming to you. They're coming through channels of people and situations, but it's really coming from your consciousness. And if you don't know that and you think it's coming from that person, now you're going to be fixated on it's got to look this way or it's got to happen this way. And you can very easily, and all you attraction people know, you can begin to create a situation where you actually manifest more of a sense of separation. You find yourself broke at a higher income bracket. You make more money, but you're broke still because the underlying consciousness is separation. So I want us just to reframe that and begin to understand that we're not attracting, we are generating. We are generative beings. We are a source and an opening and a portal of infinite, inexhaustible power and substance and wisdom. And when we tap into that and live from that, now we're not limited to just the few ideas we can think up from where our good's going to come. Now we tap into the infinite organizing power of the universe. And it's like, oh, you thought there were only these 2 opportunities? There's 200 opportunities.
Right. But you can't do that if you're in a place where you're criticizing yourself and judging yourself and beating yourself up and looking from a place of lack. So what would be that first step that gets you there when you're really in that spiral?
I get where you're trying to go. I'm not unaware of where you're trying to bring me to some specific step 1, 2. It's really important in my experience that people are first anchored on the right foundation. It's like, well, what's the first beam we have to put on this house? Well, it's like, no, first we got to get a solid foundation, because it's really important that where you start from in consciousness is everything. You can do all the right things, but to he or she who is wrong in mind, all those right things will turn out wrong. Okay, so, but you can do all the right things, and if you're right or wrong things, but if you're right in mind, they'll actually turn out right. So that's what I want people, why I want to really establish people. So the first step, like if you fall in quicksand, the worst thing to do is struggle to get out. So the first step is when we notice we're feeling out of sorts or we're scared, all of that, is to stop, is to be still, is to give ourselves the grace and the space to start to witness what's going on with us and notice. Basically, we're going to notice the fears, the doubts, the worries, and just understand that that is a pattern that we've been feeding. And we didn't create it, but we've been feeding it. And the way to eventually get free from it completely is to starve it, to stop feeding it and to feed something else. So the space, the breath, the pause, that's the first step. But then the second step really is what we're talking about, reminding ourselves, talking to ourselves about the truth. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. So we have to know the truth, the principle. We have to remember. It's not about just do. It's about stopping and bringing ourselves home again to these ideas. That's why I keep going back to wanting to say, no, don't jump into trying to attract stuff. Stop and remember, I've already got it. And that's the first step.
So remembering that it's there because it's been there before. So if you're in that pattern, that cyclical pattern, and you know that there's another way of being, but you just don't know how to get there, you're saying, remember that it's within me. I'm the acorn. That oak tree is within me, and to source and to dive deeper and to find it.
Yeah, you need to look, everything we're experiencing is an activity of our consciousness. The only place we have to win the argument or win the war is within our own consciousness, period. We're not actually in the world. The world is in us. We're not in a relationship. All relationships are in us. So if you're trying to fight with the world and win the war out there or win the argument out there, you're going to lose. Even if you win, you're going to now set up another argument, another fight, endlessly, endlessly, endlessly. Like I said, you strive and struggle to get a bigger paycheck and you find yourself broke at a higher income bracket. So you have to win the war within yourself. You have to win the argument within yourself, meaning you have to bring yourself back to a knowing and a feeling that is more congruent and more in integrity with the truth about you. And you'll know that because you'll start to feel better. You'll start to feel a sense of peace and ease. At first, you'll be arguing. It's like having the defense and prosecuting attorney both in your head, right?
Yes, yes.
And you're like, no, I'm innocent. No, you're guilty. And so it's all happening in your own mind. And so that's why me slowing it down and speaking of these principles, the greatest master teachers that have ever come along, the most fundamental thing they've done and taught is study and become a student of the truth principles. Not just as an academic exercise, but the truth principles have substance, have power. It's like the hypnotic wealth spells that we'll probably talk about a little bit. We're all hypnotized. We've all been hypnotized. And if you just think you're going to work harder or work smarter or pivot here, pivot there, while you're running around on stage chasing a white poodle that isn't there, like in a person when they're hypnotized, it's like, let me just try to catch that white poodle better. Let me not catch the white poodle. No matter what you do, there's still a white poodle there, but it's not really there. You've been hypnotized. Let me get rid of these snakes in front of me. It's not snakes. It's really a house plant, but you've been hypnotized into believing they're snakes. So we have to do the inner work and remember. And as we remember, as we know this truth and these principles we're talking about, oh, wait a second. It's already here. I've already got it. If I already had it, then what would I feel? If I already had it, then what would I do right now? Okay. And then you might go, well, gosh, what if I don't have it? But what if it's not true? What if he's lying to me? Then
It's
you
back
take
to
a breath.
chasing the hypnotic.
Right.
Yes.
Then you go back to study, to meditation, to prayer, to support. But the key I want people to get is that the whole storehouse of wealth and riches is within us. Everything we need is within us, but we don't spend enough time connecting to it. I'll say one last thing and I'll turn it back to you. It's like the joke of the guy that's outside in the dark under the street light and he's looking around through these bushes and the neighbor comes along and he's like, what's happening? He's like, oh, I lost my key or I lost something. And so the neighbor's like, okay. And he starts helping him look. And about an hour goes by and he's like, where did you lose it? He's like, I lost it inside the house, but the light is so much better out here. Right? So
Yes.
that's why that's what we have to understand. And we'll talk about the specific principles and some of the specific practices to this awakened wealth process. But and this is the hardest thing for people to hear because it doesn't sound practical. It's like, but what do I do? What do I do? And it doesn't sound like it's the hardest thing for us to be with ourselves.
Yes.
But I'm
Yes.
telling you, and I know from being with myself in the most tragic and difficult and painful times, it is hard, but the payoff is massive. So
Because it's always there. It's consistent.
always there.
Something you will always be able to rely on, no matter how tough the external gets, no matter how tough the situation or the circumstances or fluctuation, or as you said, you can always 1000% rely on your internal if it's solid, if it's there.
All there. You just have to build the path to it, build the channels and literally the neural pathways, which I show people how to do, reconnect the inner circuitry of your divine power plant, and then you can start generating. You don't have to wonder what's going to be there in the room when you show up. You know what's going to be there because you're bringing it. You're bringing the joy, you're bringing the love, and then that's what you meet. You want to know what you're going to meet wherever you go? Ask yourself, what am I bringing? Because that's what you're going to meet.
That is a great point. So it doesn't matter where you are because you've got yourself. I like the key about looking at these hypnotic spells that we're under because they're very well trained in us and they've been influenced by outside circumstances. So this is a good thing to learn about. If you go to the website, which is theawareshow.com/mastery, you'll be able to take a look at some of these things. Talk to us about the hypnotic spells that we're under around wealth specifically.
Yeah, if they go there, I'm actually giving them this entire free book, The 5 Hypnotic Wealth Spells, and several trainings about how to wake up and snap out of them. So they can go there and they'll get several books and trainings, a whole package on how to wake up from these limited beliefs and actually turn on that power plant that we're talking about and start to generate this energy, this power, this agency, so they can start becoming a master of manifestation in their life.
And snap out of what you just said, snap out of it. Yeah, that's
Snap out.
really,
Yeah. So we're all inundated with these viruses of thought, right? And these beliefs that we didn't create. And it's really important wherever you are, if you are a tendency to beat yourself up, to be hard on yourself, to blame yourself, I want you to really get it's absolutely not your fault. In a very real way, we're all victims of these viruses, of these beliefs. They were there when we got here, and they're flying around like crazy right now. And the beliefs of lack, limitation, separation, fear, doubt, worry, etc. And I'll talk about a few specific to wealth and abundance. But we can't stop. It's like the old Zen statement: you can't stop the birds from circling above your head, but you can prevent them from making a nest in your hair. So we can't stop the viruses from circling, at least not immediately. Eventually, collectively, we can, by immunizing more and more of ourselves so that these viruses just starve and they can't exist in the collective consciousness. And that's one of our bigger obligations as individuals and as students of truth and love, is to dissolve these beliefs in our own awareness, and that begins to dissolve it from the collective. But we can inoculate and vaccinate and immunize ourselves from them by knowing the truth that we've been talking about, and then by practicing it. And it builds our mental, emotional, spiritual immune system. So when these beliefs hit us, they bounce right off. They can't take hold. We're like a bug zapper for limited beliefs. They just go zip, zip, zip.
That's great.
Yeah. And it's already happening. If you notice certain areas of your life that just do great, everybody else is complaining about something, but for some reason you don't have any problem, it doesn't affect you. It's because you've been inoculated. You carry a certain type of viewpoint, a map of reality, and an identity that is not susceptible to those thought viruses. So you can see what it looks like and feel what it feels like, because everybody has one or more of those areas. We just got to move that same feeling and that same awareness to now the area of abundance, wealth, success. So I'll just briefly go through some of these, and we can maybe poke in on a couple. One of the first ones is that we've talked about already. That's why it's the first, is that the belief or the hypnotic spell that we are separate from our good, and we have to go out and get it, achieve it, or attract it. And we are consciousness, but we are consciousness in the experiment of what is consciousness in biology, in form. What is an infinite eternal life force in a finite structure and form? How do we do that thing? And that's what we're up to right now. How do we do that without going unconscious? How do we be an infinite eternal life force without falling into the hypnotic spell that we are the form that we are inhabiting? And so a very, very long time ago, we began to discern, there I am and there you are. And there's this sense of separation, and this body and that body and this thing and that thing. And that was important evolutionarily, because we needed to know spatially so we can move around, and also so we wouldn't walk off a cliff or think we could make a pet out of a saber-toothed cat. We had to negotiate, but it created a sense of separation. And so then we began to believe my good isn't me, which is pure consciousness. It's that thing out there. The thing I need is out there or in you. And over time, that built a very powerful hypnotic spell. And we're all living under it. And then we built institutions after it, and educational systems around it, and medical systems based on it, and war, all based on this fundamental hypnotic spell of separation. And the truth, and this is the truth you have to contemplate and begin to ask, what would it look like to practice? We are one with all of our good. And I know you guys have all heard that. You're like, oh, there's nothing new. But I guarantee if you're not experiencing abundance in every area of your life, you don't really know this truth. You just pay lip service to it, and it's just become some new age academic idea. So that's the first one. The second one is money and things. I know sometimes I'm a little bit, I get up in people's grill.
This is great. It's
I'm,
great. You're right. It is. We know we're good. We have glimpses of good.
yeah,
And then we disconnect from it. And that's when the pain starts. And that's when the self-doubt and the self-criticism and the self-judgment starts. And that's when you start putting your happiness externally and you
all of
forget.
that follows, Lisa. Why? Because once you come under the hypnotic spell that you're separate from your good, and you believe that part of that belief also is that I have to earn the good, earn the peace, earn the joy, earn the happiness by some change in an external condition. I have to purchase my peace through some external condition. That's a belief. Now we start all these layers of coping, protection, defense mechanisms. And that looks like manipulation and coercion and aggression and beating ourselves up and all manner of compulsive and addictive behaviors, all to cope with the fact that we have been hypnotized and are living in a reality where we believe we're separate from that we truly need and want. We never were separate. We never are separate. But it is done unto you as you believe. So if you believe it, you will create it, right? And so we have to come back home again, wake up, put that piece of apple back on the tree in the garden that we took a bite out of and believed in separation, and wake up from that really bad trip and go, whoa, that was a trip. And then realize, oh, we're surrounded by abundance. We're inundated with it. And that's the second piece. Money and things are wealth. That's a hypnotic wealth spell, right? So we believe that our wealth, our abundance is the dollar bills or the euros or the yen or the stocks, bonds, cabbages, and kings. And this is part of the first one because we've built a reality that the value of life is in matter, that what matters is matter. And we have to come back home again to actually what matters, the quality of our experience and the realization that wealth is not dollar bills, is not things. Just like if you were a farmer and you had a harvest of fruit trees and all the fruit was taken off all the trees, right? So does that mean you're broke? Does that mean you got no more wealth?
They'll just reharvest. You just reharvest.
Exactly. The farmer, she doesn't go, well, let's
Yes.
burn all the trees down.
Right.
She's like, oh, we're fine. In perfect season, as we honor and nurture the roots, it will do its magical alchemy and pull the frequencies from the soil. It doesn't use up the soil. It pulls the frequencies and actually transmutes it into flower, blossom, marble, and fruit over and over. Where did that fruit come from? It came from nothing, no thing. They've even done studies where they put a tree in a tub, measured the volume of it, grew and grew the fruit, measured the volume again, and it took almost nothing from the volume. So where did all that fruit come from? It came from the same place the whole universe came from, and the same place all of your wealth comes from, which is within you. Money or wealth is invisible, and it is substance, and it is your own consciousness, your own intelligence. And we'll talk a little bit later. Once you know that and begin to practice, then it's like, well, how do I get it out of me? How do I start?
Right. But it does feel so physical because it does feel like a transactional thing. Money does. It pays for bills and mortgages and rent.
Yes. There's no doubt that there's a transactional layer that you exchange, which used to be a barter system. It was not dollar bills. It was shells. Or it was like, I got some bread and you give me a candle. But eventually we didn't have enough. I couldn't store enough bread without it going bad to get the candles, the eggs, and the chickens. So we had to come up with another system of exchanging. But let's just trace it back. What was the bread? It was the product of my own life force, my own efforts, my own energy. So the source of wealth is the current of our life force, otherwise known as currency. And that when we are flowing it out, all that money is it's a system we created to symbolize the current of our life force. That's it.
It
In fact,
is, right. It's a
that's
created
all it
system.
is.
Hmm.
Because we used to do it just fine in the village. Our life force, our love force, our service, the energy of our own consciousness and heart manifested the fruits of our own being, and we were able to trade them and have what we needed. But as that expanded, we just created a system to scale that. But we've lost sight, and now we think it's the system that is our source. But the source of it was never the system. It's this current. And that's where currency comes from. And the word affluence, which means wealthy, comes from the word to flow. And the reason why it says money, the love of money is the root of all evil, is it's saying the love of the symbols of wealth.
Mm.
If you think the fruit is your wealth, the farmer is going to hold it all onto the tree and tape it up so it never comes off the tree and kill all the birds so they never get at it. Now I've got all my fruit. It's like the little Daffy Duck cartoon. It's mine, mine, it's all mine.
Yes.
I'll probably date myself there. But uh, but like now we hold on to our fruit, and what happens? It rots on the tree because it was never the wealth. Go ahead. You want to say something?
So yes, I was talking. So the wealth is that
I know I'm down
ability.
a lot right now, but
Yeah,
anyways.
no, that's great. No, this I love the analogy of the trees because the wealth is the ability to recreate that level of abundance and knowing it's going to be there. It takes nothing from the energy of the tree to create. It is a part of
And
the
it
tree.
takes nothing from the soil.
Mm.
If
Mm.
that did, then think of it. We would have run out of dirt by now,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't take it from the soil. It uses the soil to create the condition for that which is invisible to become visible. We know this because right where we are right now, we're inundated with radio stations, at least for now, and your favorite music is playing, but you can't hear it. It's not manifest. Why? Because you're not tuned into
Tuned
that
in.
frequency. The
Yes.
minute you're tuned into that frequency, with you build the structure called the radio and you tune into that frequency, that invisible music, that station becomes manifest. Or as I like to say, you have a manifestation, right? And I'm here all week, folks.
That was good. That was good.
Right? So, but where was the music before? It was
It
right
was always
here.
there. It was
It's
always
always
broadcasting. Hmm.
always broadcasting the beat of your abundance, the symphony of your success, the rhythm of joy. It's always playing. This is what Jesus was saying when they're like, when is heaven going to come? And he's like, they think it's this physical thing. He's like, it's not going to come. You won't see it with your eyes. Having eyes, you're not going to see it. Having ears, you're not going to hear it. It's in the midst of you, it's within you. Go there. And if you find it there, all of these things you're seeking after, food, clothing, it will show up as the added things. He taught that. Buddha taught that. They're all teaching that.
Yes,
And
they're
and
all
so
teaching the
this
same
is the
thing. Hmm.
it's the same thing. We've been hypnotized by a materialistic personal sense of life. And we've created this three-dimensional hologram that is manifesting symbolically reality, but it's not reality. It's symbolic reality. Reality is within us. And what I'm inviting people and what I teach people is how to wake up and begin to live in more of reality, real wealth, real joy, real power, real connection, and then express it into the holograph called life. And what happens is it manifests as more fruit on the tree. It manifests as, oh my God, I can't believe I got that job. It manifests, but it's emerging out of the field of your consciousness. And it's coming through channels of the world, but it is never coming from the world. It's coming from you.
So to kind of go back, I mean, that was just one of the hypnotic wealth
Yeah,
patterns. I mean,
exactly.
that was just one of them.
I started talking about the second one, but yeah.
But yeah, again, if you want to really dive into these, you could go to theawareshow.com/mastery. But when we were talking about the self-doubt and the self-criticism, and that if you look down and that's what's emerging for you, how do you recognize that as being a false belief and a false sense of reality? Because it's truly there is this wealth of abundance that you're talking about. But what if your mind thinks, nope, what's really there is self-punishment?
Yeah, and that's very, we have that belief, obviously, because we've been hypnotized by a belief in good and evil. by belief in that there's good powers and bad powers, and we've got some good parts of us and some bad parts of us. This is all the allegory of the Garden of Eden. That's why we fell from paradise or innocence, because we ate of the knowledge or the belief that there's good and bad, meaning there's not really just God, there's a God and a devil and all this nonsense. But so, yes, we're going to still be having that program that's running. And the way to deal with it is not to try to attack that part of us. Oh, there I go again, beating myself up, or what's wrong with me, or attack somebody else. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with the system? All of that is more of the egoic idea of a self apart from abundance, apart from life. And it's just survival mechanisms and coping mechanisms. So what you have to do is, again, this is what one master teacher said, is love your enemy. And he said the enemy is in your own household. And so what that means is all those parts within us that are angry, critical, self-loathing, doubting, blaming, shaming, these are very, very tender and precious parts of us that have at some point along the way gotten an experience or a message that they were bad, that they were wrong, that they're not good enough. And like a little child that's been punished, or somebody that's been punished over and over, they're acting out. And that's the only way that they know to get attention or to try to get their need met, is to scream or rant or blame or shame or guilt trip or attack. And it's worked in the past, so that it just keeps doing it, right? Until we believe we have to grow by beating ourselves up into a better version. But when we meet those parts of ourselves, and I'm not saying it's always easy, but I show people how to do that. I show people how to do that in general, but very specifically around the different shadow parts of us when it comes to wealth, abundance, and success in this book and in this training. But in general, when we meet that part of us, just remember that's a precious, tender part of you that has been hurt, that has been misguided, that has been misunderstood, and it's acting out. And just like a child,
attention, basically,
it wants your attention. And so you want to be what the real meaning of love is to seek to understand your beloved and to seek to understand what is their true need, and then to meet that need. That's love. Love is not just being nice or giving people whatever they want. It's seeking to really understand what they need and then to meet that need. So as you sit with those parts of you, listen to them, hold them, rock them. You can literally rock those parts of you and find out, what does he or she really need? And if you listen closely and consistently, you will begin to hear, I just want to know that I'm safe, or I just want to know that I'm okay, or I just want to stop doing this over here and start doing this over here. I'm tired of being in an abusive relationship. I want to start doing things for me. You'll begin to hear beneath the anger and the criticism, there's actually a legitimate need. And then you can begin to meet it. And as you meet it, you begin to repair that relationship and that circuit within you. We haven't gotten to it yet, but the key to abundance in every area is about circulation. And whenever there's not circulation, there's stagnation, because there's a broken circuit. There is not flow. There's not both the positive and the negative charge like on a battery. It's a broken circuit. As you hold that part, meet its true need, you start to repair the circuitry. And circulation, life starts to flow again in that part of you. And lo and behold, you will notice some bit of more good or abundance starts to manifest in your life.
That's interesting. So listening and honoring whatever it is that is trying to get your attention. And the more you listen, the more you'll find out what it needs, and then what you need, really.
Exactly.
And that moves you forward into closer. So this is what I was talking about, that gap.
Yes.
Of how do you bridge the gap from self-criticism to really knowing that you are good. And
it's about not making anything within you bad. Like, we don't make the critic bad. There's nothing wrong with her. She's awesome. I love my inner critic and my inner jerk and my inner bully and my inner selfish jerk. Like, as you meet those parts of you, there's only a lot of pain around it because there's been judgment and shame and blame and misunderstanding. And then instead of holding that precious part of us to understand them better, we just keep beating them up for being what they are.
Right.
And
Right.
and then the beginning of healing and real forgiveness is understanding. The selfish part of you, the critical part of you, has a role in your life. She's not bad, but she has to. It's like we think it's this. This is one of the hypnotic spells about, spiritual growth, is that it's all about the light and it's all about the positive.
Right.
And it's not. And try to plug a battery in with only the positive charge. You'll get no circulation. You'll get no light. You'll get no
Very
energy.
good point. Mm-hmm.
You need the critic and the cheerleader. You need selfish and selfless.
Provides the contrast.
Yeah, it's the contrast, it's the polarity, and that polarity creates a circuit. And because the negative is the void, it pulls the charge into the void and it creates the experience of motion. And together it creates a circuit, which now creates circulation. And now you have life. Now you have energy. If you have a swamp and you think it's all about positivity, just keep filling, or a body of water, just keep pouring water in, pouring water in, pouring water in, but there's no outlet, it becomes a flood. If you're all about just keep pouring water out, pouring water out, pouring water out, but there's no inlet, it becomes a dry riverbed. If it's don't pour in and don't pour out, just hold it and hoard it, it becomes a swamp.
Uh-huh.
You have to have the whole circuit, the taking in, the giving out, the receiving back, both polarities. And when that's in place, the divine power plant lights up and it starts producing again.
Well, that's also a good point, because you can't be happy all the time or in flow all the time. I mean, in our lives, we've been through journeys of hills, valleys, and we go through that circulation a lot. So it's also refreshing to know that it is a necessary part of life. It's what builds our character, and we've gotten through it. So we've been through worse things, and now we're in a good place. And it might get rough again, but only because you're learning and not because it always needs to be completely perfect. That's another huge illusion.
Totally. It's not the way that reality works. Life is infinite and it's eternally unfolding. It's this divine chaos that is forever unfolding into greater order. Chaos, order, chaos, order, chaos, order. Positive, negative, construction, destruction, construction, destruction. But again, back to the original start of this conversation, if you think you're the construction or the destruction, if you think you're the positive or the negative, you think you're the good or the bad, you're going to always be pivoting. But what I'm talking about is anchoring ourselves, what Buddha called the middle path or the equanimity, learning to anchor ourselves in the center so that you're neither good or bad. You're neither sick or healthy. You're neither rich or poor. You're not good or evil. You are that holds the dance of those polarities. And this is now we're going down the mystical rabbit hole a bit, but I'm sure your people love this stuff. But and we'll get way practical in the book and the training and how to pay your rent and all that, but we're having fun with this. But the truth is we're learning to hold more of the dance of life without having to judge it, without having to control it, without having to do anything about it, but to be an ever bigger, purer space where this life can move through us and flow through us according to our unique blueprint and divine design and purpose. And now it can keep manifesting glory to greater glory, world without end, opportunity without end, ever expanding, ever expressing, ever upward spiraling, more good, more love, more peace, more joy. But that means we got to let go of our concept of joy and peace from yesterday, or we got to let go of our concept of abundance or ourselves from yesterday if we want to let more come through. It's got to keep circulating, right? And so these polarities, when we are both selfish and selfless, when we are both greedy and giving, when we are both good and bad, for example, when you embrace the bad boy or the bad girl, you don't become bad in the sense, you become capable of not merely conforming to the rules of the world so that you can become an innovator, you can become a leader, you can do the right thing even when it doesn't conform to the tribe. So you have to embrace your bad girl and your bad boy, or you're going to always be conforming, or you're going to always feel pressure and stress, and you're going to feel resentful because you're not being more fully expressed. That's just one little example of that.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense that it causes us pain to live under these types of hypnotic
Totally.
patterns. It definitely does. And no fault of our own. And there's also one thing to be talking about this and another thing to totally do it, to really embrace this. I mean, you can hear Derek's passion around this, but to really bring it into your life the next time you have that episode of self-doubt or worry, the next time you look at the bank account, you've got to apply these things. And it's not one to just go through the motions or read about it or listen to Derek so brilliantly talk about it. You actually have to apply it. So the first little tiny step that someone can do, Derek, to catch themselves, to start themselves into this way of thinking, what's like the simplest first thing people can do?
Well, again, as we said, you keep remembering, pause and remember, snap out of it. You know, like when you have a bad dream and you keep having a recurring dream, you can't just solve the problem in the dream. The first thing you do is go, wake up, wake up. You're like, shh, shh, trying to wake yourself out of the dream. So you got to start there. When you notice you're caught again in a constricting, fear-based downward spiral, you are in the nightmare, the recurring nightmare, and you have to stop and be like, wake up, wake up. You know, it's like, psh, psh, snap out of it, you know, lovingly. But so first you got to wake up. And the waking up is, wait, what did Derek say again? What did Lisa say again? Open up
Yes.
the book that I'm giving you, turn on the training. Oh yeah, that's right. It's all here. And bring yourself home. And I'm being somewhat tongue in cheek, but remember what's true about you. Talk to yourself, tell yourself the truth. Bring yourself back, soothe yourself back home again. And that's not always going to be easy. You'll be like, I love you, Derek. You're okay. No, you're not. Shut up. You know, you'll be like a schizophrenic sometimes. And you're like, okay, I hear you. You're upset, but I still got you, you know, and you
What
just,
do you need? What do
what
you
do you
need right
need?
now?
Right. And that's the second part. Hold that part of you that's acting out. Listen to them, give them space, give them a voice. What do they need? And remember this foundational principles we're talking about, that all the substance of all of creation is invisible, is spiritual, is consciousness, and it's infinitely and inexhaustibly within you. You are another way the creative force of the universe has full agency to create its own world. It's all in you. And the wealth you seek, or the health you seek, or the love you seek, whatever form abundance needs to take. And this is me talking and reminding myself and you, I'm showing you, it's all here. It's not in that person. It's not in that job. It's not in that client.
Yeah.
And then, as I said, we haven't gotten to it yet. So that's the first step, is wake yourself up, snap out of it, be still, talk to that part of you that's afraid or acting out, hold them, rock them, see what they really need, and seek to understand them. And keep talking to yourself, winning the inner argument. Win the argument. You are the lawyer for love. You are the lawyer for the truth that sets you free. And so when all the defense is saying, it's never going to work, you suck, life's not, you're the lawyer for love and truth. You're like, well, I have a different case I want to present to you, court. And you start to talk to yourself until you win the case. And or at least win enough of it that you can get a hold of yourself and move on to now, what is the next action step? And we won't go into it now, but you definitely need to have a North Star, a life that you are a stand for, a life that you are living for. If you're merely a problem solver, you're going to always be stuck at the level of problems. But if you have a vision that you're living for, if you don't just want wealth and health and love just for its own sake, you want to make sure, if I had the wealth, health, and love, who would I be then? Who could I be then? What could I do? What could I create? What could I contribute? And keep asking that until it unfolds a vision for your life. That will pull you. The pain will push you until the vision pulls you. So you can be pushed by pain or pulled by a vision. I would encourage you to be pulled by a vision.
Yes.
So that's another piece. And we'll go much more into that into the training. And then I want to get to one other piece here, if we have the time, which is on a very practical level, when you know now that it's all within you, there is a practical process that I created that allows you to generate that energy into your life. And it's called the 7 gifts that give you everything, or the 7 wealth activators. By the way, as soon as you sign up for this free package here, I'm going to give you that too. Don't tell anybody. I'm just letting that out of the bag. I'm going to give you that book and that training as well. So,
and that's the awareshow.com/mastery if anybody wants to know. Okay,
yeah.
go ahead.
So I'm going to give you a lot of goodies, more than you see there. That's being abundant. That's being generous, because I know I can never outgive the universe. So, in the 7 gifts, remember we talked about circulation is key. And so if you think about breath, you can't, a lot of people think it's all about taking care of everybody and giving, giving, giving. And they're resentful and they're angry and they're burned out. And they're like, I got nothing left to give. But they're missing one important point. They're not giving to themselves. And so you cannot give what you don't have. And so we have to first give to ourselves. We have to fill ourselves up. We know that. Second piece of the circulation is you cannot keep what you don't give away. So if you try to breathe out before you breathed in, you're going to die eventually, quickly. If you try to breathe in but never breathe back out again, you're going to die. So you've got to first have it, then you have to give it. You have to give everything you want. You have to give it. I want more love. Where can I give more love? I want more joy. Where can I bring more joy? I want more respect. Let me bring more respect to my wife or husband or whatever. But I got to also not just do that. I got to go, how can I love and respect myself more? I got to first fill myself up. Then I got to give it away. Then I have to be willing to receive it, because you cannot sustain what you don't receive. And that means when somebody compliments you, you don't go, oh, come on, this old hair, this old ratty dress, I just threw it on. That's nothing. Oh, you were brilliant today. Oh, that was nothing. We deflect all over the place. Yep. So you got to fill yourself up. You got to give it away. You got to receive it. So these 7 wealth activators are a system and a process of starting to generate. And I won't go through all of them, but I'll just briefly mention them. It's giving out, giving away, giving up, giving in, giving thanks, giving to yourself, and forgiving. And
those are good.
Yeah.
Yes.
So like just a really quick little simple practical example on giving away. Everything is energy. Everything in your life is energy. And you've got a lot of stuff in your life, in your house, in your closet, in your car, in your office, that is stuck energy. It's got a story, it's got emotion, it's got all this stuff, and it's stuck and it's stagnant and it's not allowing circulation. And when you begin to go through, and I've been teaching this for years, long before Maria Kondo of the tidy up, magical art of tidying up your, she talks about the same idea.
Yes.
So there's almost a magical thing that happens, almost a mystical thing, when you get rid of all the stuff that doesn't bring joy and beauty.
Yes, it is so clear. It's clearing and it's freeing. Yes, absolutely.
And it's more than just freeing and clearing in an emotional sense. I've taught this and seen over the years, literally the magical thing that can happen. I remember one individual, they were trying to sell their house, and they had 30 some people see it, not a single offer, not a single bite. And they then decided to practice this. They had a basement full of stuff that they just couldn't get rid of. And they started going through, and it's pictures and photos, and it was emotional, and it was so much. And they finally just emptied the whole thing out. 24 hours later, they got an offer for more than they were asking, and they sold their house. And so I've seen many of these examples.
Frees
so
up energy, yes.
It's just one of the things, but there's 7 core ways I'm going to show you how to start generating this energy, how to start repairing the circuitry, how to create a flood of circulation again in your life, which more circulation always creates more abundance.
Well, that is a beautiful way to just wrap this up with you. I can't believe it's been almost an hour and we've had this download of information come in, and I get it. I get steps. I get how important this is. I get it's a bridge from here to here, and from having that feeling that's always going to be there for you. I once again encourage you to go to the website, which is theawareshow.com/mastery. And I thank you so much for everything that you have opened up to amidst all of your, your life's undulations and ups and downs. You will constantly show up and pour through yourself and guide us to exactly what we need to hear.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. It's been my honor, been my joy.
Absolutely. Aw. And also, one more thing is, if you are listening to this on a podcast, and if you go to the Aware Show podcast and you really heard something here that Derek said that you thought would help a friend, he was talking about giving the information and sharing the information. You can do that right there on the podcast too. Just share it with a friend and inspire someone, or say, look, I really felt that this made sense for me. It can help you too. Right here, you can start that beautiful, wonderful thing of giving away too. So thank you so much, Derek. What were you going to say? One more thing?
Well, I just wanted to add one final piece, because I know we went in a lot of directions, and I would definitely listen again to this. People, get the training, free stuff, because I'll walk you very slow through it. I can tend to start talking really fast when you pull my string and the channels open up. But I really want you to know that although it may sound woo-woo or down the rabbit hole, it's extremely real and practical. I've done this work for over 20 years. I've seen people utterly change their lives, make millions of dollars, heal relationships, launch businesses, fill practices, and also personally. This was born in a crisis during a recession when I was about to be evicted. It saved me then. It took me on a journey of wealth and abundance. It saved me in business and in personal life. It's allowed me to keep thriving during a very difficult divorce of 23-year marriage, and then take my life to yet another whole new level of love and abundance. And it's allowed me to go through the tragedy of a loss of a child even. We won't go into all that, but I'm saying that because I really want you to know this is real. And whatever loss or struggle or pain you might be going through, and maybe you don't care about making a bunch of money or whatever, but you do want to thrive again. You want to live again. You want to feel alive and abundant and on purpose, and that this will bring you home and give you the tools to do that. I can tell you that for sure. So I hope that brings some hope.
Yes, I see you relying on this all of the time. You wouldn't be able to get through what you've been through without these tools deep inside of you. So thank you so much for everything. And once again, I invite you to go to the website, theawareshow.com/mastery. I'm Lisa Garr, and until next time, I invite you to stay aware.